Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Big Gold Belt movie review. Today, we are here to bring you the latest horror movie from A24, and this one is called Bring Her Back. Here's a quick synopsis. Following the death of their father, a brother and sister are introduced to their new sibling by their foster mother, only to learn she has a terrifying secret. And this is directed by Danny and Michael Filippo. It stars Sally Hawkins, Billy Barrett, Sarah Wong, and Jonah Wren Phillips. Now, here's the thing. Danny and Michael are the directors of Talk to Me, which is a film that took over a couple of years ago the horror market. It was a film that caught a lot of people by surprise and a lot of people off guard about how good it was. So to follow up what most people consider a modern day horror masterpiece and Talk to Me with a film like Bring Her Back is a very interesting choice, as we're introduced to the two kids at the beginning of this film and a death scene with their father in it. And then that's when we get the introduction of Sally Hawkins, who plays the foster mother here, with a terrifying secret. And that's the crux of Bring Her Back, is you're here in this film to find out exactly who we're bringing back, why we're bringing them back, and why Sally Hawkins is so weird throughout this entire film. Now, Michael and Danny, as usual, and just they did and Talk to Me, they do an amazing job of building the tension in the storyline of exactly what's happening here. As we get the two kids just in anguish exactly of losing their dad, but also adjusting to a new environment. And we see her latch on to the character played by Sarah Wong, and latch on to her and attempt her best to build a relationship with her. But we also understand that she has no intention on building a relationship with her brother Andy. And that is what, as an audience, you're intrigued by the most. It's everything that's happening with Andy in the story, and why is it happening only to Andy in this story, as we understand the trauma of them coming home from school one day and finding their father passed away. But the storyline propels itself, and you're wondering exactly what Sally's character is doing here, and why was she so fixated in adopting the daughter and not necessarily the son here. And what does that mean for the plot of the film? And then we're also introduced to Oliver, which is a kid that she says she's adopted beforehand, the first foster kid of hers. And when we're introduced to Oliver, he's a mute, does not speak, and just as weird and creepy as humanly possible here. And we kind of see the film at that point through the eyes of Oliver, in a sense that everything that happens in it kind of revolves around that character. All the secrets of the film revolve around Oliver, and then as an audience, you're stuck to find out exactly what's going on here. And that's how Michael and Danny do an amazing job at building attention. This is a beautifully directed film. Like, it's hard to find horror movies that look as good as this. The Australian horror market is possibly, within the last 5 years, probably the best outside of the South Korea market to get original base horror films. And here, this is more in the vein of the Babadook and things of that nature, more of a psychological horror film than the traditional jump scare horror. So here, because of that reason here, the goal is to always build tension through the most mundane things. And as we see the kids adjusting to their new home, adjusting to the new foster mother, and adjusting to Oliver, that's where the tension is built at. A lot of this film only happens on maybe two sets. The one set is the house, and the other set is kind of the office where the kids got picked up at when they got to the foster home. And I think that's where they do a great job at just limiting locations and building that suspense around a location. Just like they did in Talk to Me, in the same aspect of understanding that less is more in horror films, and as long as you can build tension up in a singular place with characters, that once you pull that off and pull that off well, it's kind of hard to fail in the execution of a horror film. And that's what you get out of Bring Her Back. The only flaw, and for some people it may be a flaw that you cannot get over, is about 3/4 through the film, it feels like it runs out of story. And when it runs out of story, it goes into the very predictable elements of psychological horrors. And when you get into those elements of psychological horrors that you can predict, the story just drags down. Like, this movie is not that long, but it literally feels like it's about 20 minutes too long. It feels like it ran out of storyline 20 minutes before you get to the actual conclusion of the film. And then once you get to the conclusion of the film, because how great the buildup is in the first two acts, it leaves you wanting more from the third act to the end of the film that you're not going to get here. But again, once you play up that angle that this is a psychological horror film, some of the things that you may be looking for out of traditional horror does not happen. But then, oddly enough, in the third act, some of those traditional horror elements do creep themselves in, and it kind of lessens the impact of what the film could be. And that's the only flaw in Bring Her Back. The first two acts of this is possibly some of the best horror movie shots, horror movie on screen that you will see. It is almost perfect for those first two acts. It's just that when you get to that third act and you feel, unfortunately, as an audience, you feel the story dragging on. And you're kind of wondering, okay, how are we going to wrap this up to a conclusion that while it doesn't need to be happy, it needs to be satisfying. By the point and the time you get to that point, it's 20 minutes left in the film. And at that point, you're just wondering, like, okay, when are we going to get to the obvious thing that's going to happen here? As again, the film kind of goes off the rails in that third act. But before you get to that third act, you get to see a performance from Sally Hawkins that is absolutely amazing. This is one of the best psychological horror performances I've seen since Kathy Bates, in the sense that it's controlled chaos of what you get out of Sally Hawkins in this film. She is a lunatic at times. At other times, she seems to be the most caring person in the world. Other times, she seems to be the funnest person in the world. But when you get to the true motivation of why she's doing everything, it just becomes creepy. And it's so well, like her performance is so well executed that at times you just wish, again, that her ending, and in other words, the third act, could have been stronger for her, because she carries this film through and throughout. And that's just a testament to just how amazing of an actress she is. And that does not have anything to do with the young cast members and what they do here, especially Billy, who plays Andy. He's great in this film of playing this kid who just doesn't want everyone else in the world to think he's crazy, because he knows something is going on here. So again, playing them two against each other at multiple times in this film, especially in the very explosive scene before we get to the third act, that again is something you wouldn't expect in a horror film, but you would expect more in a family drama, and it fits so well here in this element of horror that it just helps heighten the tension of the film. And that's kind of what you need to do throughout Bring Her Back, is heighten that tension up. So Bring Her Back, again, brought to you by A24. This is releasing on, I think it's May the 30th this comes out. So right at the end of the month, right after the holiday, you'll get to see this film in theaters. Out of a possible 10, I am going to give Bring Her Back an 8.5 out of 10. If it was not for the third act, this would be a perfect horror film. Bring Her Back gives you everything you want in a psychological horror film, including a great performance and amazing direction. Unfortunately, it's not the crowd pleaser that Talk to Me was. And I think because it's not the crowd pleaser that Talk to Me was, I think it could end up disappointing some people. But in its actual execution, I think it's a better directed film than Talk to Me. Like, this film sets up some very tense moments. At times you wish it would have went as far as it could have gone, but it's other times where you wish it would pull back, because it is gruesome in its depiction of a breakdown in this film. And I think that's what we get with this new age of horrors, that everything doesn't have to be a jump scare to actually terrify you. Bring Her Back does an amazing job of terrifying you without having to dive too much in its own supernatural elements. Instead, it does it just off of a creepy mother in and an actress giving an amazing performance. But check it out when it drops. Let us know what you think. This has been another Big Gold Belt movie review. Peace, people.